So our next teller is Janos again, and this time it's not a personal tale. So I'm really excited to hear it because mostly I've heard about Janos's life and thought, I live a dull life compared to that guy. So we'll see what he's bringing to us from Carpathia.
The base of this story is set out in a book by Khaled Hussein, How the Mountains Echoed. My story is in the Carpathian Mountains, just south of Poland, what now is probably Slovakia. It's a mountainous region. And there, in a village, still a long, long time ago, at a time when the bears still had the run of the forests, man didn't encroach on their habitat, when the Bengal tiger was not a threatened species, when pixies and elves still danced in clearing between the trees under the full moon. And in fact, it's a full moon tonight, isn't it? I wonder if there will be dancing. And the story is about Károly and Ilushka, a couple in a very poor village called Salgótarján. They worked hard. Károly pulled the plough all day. His hands often bled. He pulled the plough. They didn't have a horse or an ox, with his son helping. Ilushka worked at home, feeding their children, selling their meager crops at the market. Life was hard. It was hard to keep food on the table, and some days there was food on the table, and some days only crumbs. The wells in the village had dried out ages ago, and the river was quite a distance, and it was running with muddy water. But they felt themselves to be lucky. They felt themselves fortunate that they loved each other, and they had 5 children, 2 boys and 3 girls, and they could put food on the table, and it was a happy family. They loved all their children, but particularly one, Urchi. He was the youngest. He was 3 years old and so full of life and energy. In fact, he had too much energy. He wouldn't stop. He would just wander away from the house. I mean, he would do this even at night. He would wander away. And they were fearing that some wild animal would eat him, or he would drop into fall down into a well. And they didn't know what to do about this. And of course, the neighbors offered many suggestions, but in the end, a very simple suggestion proved to be the best. They took a bell from one of the goats and hung him round Urchi's neck. So everywhere he went, the bell tinkled, and they would soon find him. And when Károly got home from the fields, Urchi ran full pelt at his father and would hug him round the leg. And Károly would lift him up high into the air, and the bell would tinkle before he set him down again. It was a long time ago. In those days, gorgons still roamed the land, but fortunately had not visited Salgótarján. There were rumors, it was said that it visited other villages. And there were rumors of the gorgon taking children. But maybe the children in Salgótarján were too thin to be taken. Everyone was poor, meager food on the table. When the gorgon came and tapped on the roof, you had to give one child. And if you didn't, it would take all the children. You can imagine how dreadful this could be. But one day, Salgótarján heard the earth tremble. No one had ever seen the gorgon, It was said that he had red eyes and he had coarse black hair and a tail, but no one dared to look at him. If you did, he would eat you, it was said. And the ground trembled when the Gorgon came, and all the people snuffed out their candles, and they lay on the floor huddled. They locked their doors, dreading and listening. Where is the Gorgon going? I think you know which house the Gorgon stopped at, which house the Gorgon tapped the roof of. Yes, it was Karoi and Ilushka, and they huddled on the ground, fearing the tap, and the tap came. And they had until sunrise. When the first rays of the sun came over the mountains, they would have to put a child out. And they wept and talked and talked and wept all night. What a decision to make. How can parents make such a decision? They found 5 stones and wrote the children's names of them and put them into a sack. It was too difficult. Who's going to go in and take a stone? And Karoi flung the stone angrily against the wall, and 1 stone fell out. I think you know whose name was on that stone, don't you? It was Urchi. They had to put the boy outside. And they opened the door and pushed the boy out seconds before the first rays of the sun came over the mountain. And Urchi turned round, just realizing what was going on. And with his little hands, he was pounding on the door, "Mama, Papa." And on the other side, Karoi and Ilushka held each other and sobbed uncontrollably. And the Gorgon picked Urchi up and dropped him in his sack. "Forgive me, forgive me." And it was silence until the Gorgon walked away. And all that could be heard was Karoi and Ilushka sobbing, holding each other. Well, the days passed, 40 days of mourning, and the villagers fed the household. But they couldn't settle. They couldn't live with giving their child away. And a year passed, and 2 years, and they grew thin as if they had lost all their zest for life. The fields overgrew with weeds, the house became unkempt, and they walked around like zombies. And they decided that they've got to go, find a Gorgon, and get their son back, or kill the beast. And one day, without saying anything to the children, they knew that the neighbors would take care of them. They got a burlap sack, put whatever bread they had in there. Karoi got his scythe, and off they set up north. And for many days they traveled over mountains. They slept in caves. They slept at the side of rivers. They ate the bread. They found wild berries. They caught fish with their bare hands. And they went day after day. Their shoes, their sandals came off their feet. They went barefoot. And after many days, up the mountain, with the wind, the strong wind, and the hawks and the rain, they finally found the fort of the Gorgon. And Karoi took his scythe and he rapped on the door, bang, bang, bang. And from inside, "Who dares disturb me?" And Karoi said, "We've come to kill you." "To kill me?" And then the gate opened. And the Gorgon looked at them and looked at their lack of shoes, their bleeding feet, the clothes that hung on them. And he said, you must have come a long way. And Karoi said, yes, we came from Shalgotarian. How far is that? And Ilushka said, we didn't come here to palaver. We came here to kill you. But Gorgon said, can we talk for just a minute? Okay. And who have you lost? We lost our son, Urchi. And Karo and the Gorgon said, I can't really think of the boy. I've taken many children from many villages. And Karo said, in that case, we will take revenge for them all. And the Gorgon said, would you come with me for just a moment? And Karo said, okay, but hurry. And he took them inside. And there were huge caverns with the ceiling lost up in the heavens, really, and pillars. And they walked through labyrinth of twists and turns. And finally they came to a large room with a curtain at the far end. And the Gorgon said, come closer. And he drew the curtain apart. And there was a glass. And behind the glass, a beautiful garden. Trees, flowers, butterflies, green grass, a stream running through. And what brought them to their knees was there were boys and girls running in the garden. They all seemed happy. They were playing. They were playing hide and seek. And they looked and they saw Urchi. He had grown. His hair was long. He had a beautiful white shirt and smart pants. And he was chasing two of his comrades. And Ilushka whispered, Urchi, against the glass, misting up in front of her mouth. And Karoi screamed, Urchi! And the Gorgon said, they can't hear you. They can't hear us? What is this? The Gorgon said, this is a reward. A reward for what? A reward because you were given a very difficult task, a task of love. I know how difficult that task was. But what if we hadn't chosen? What if we didn't partake in your task? Then all of your children would have perished anyway, because they would have been blessed with cowards for parents. Parents who would see them die, all die, rather than make a choice and burden their own conscience. What? And the Gorgon said, they live here now. They don't remember you. They are given the best of everything. They're given love, affection. They are tutored in the sciences, in everything that you should know, and they're shown ways of charity and wisdom. One day, Urchi, when he's a man, he can leave here, and he will go about, and he will change many people's lives. He will give comfort to those who are in sorrow. Ilushka said, we want to take him home. The Gorgon said, do you? Think, what life will they have? But I'll give you 1 hour to decide. And with that, the Gorgon was gone. Ilushka and Karoi sat there, wondering what should they do? They wanted to take him back. And they realized that perhaps it was for their own selfish reason. Because here he would grow to be strong. And back in the village, he would have calloused hands he would have, just like his father. And you have to work from dawn till dusk to put food on the table. And they couldn't decide, but the hour had passed. And back came the Gorgon, and he said, have you made a decision? And Karoi said, you are a cruel beast. And the Gorgon said, you know, when you have lived as long as I have, you realize that cruelty and benevolence are but the shade of the same color. And Ilushka said, we've decided to leave him here. And the Gorgon said that was a good decision. They dried their tears and headed out of the door. And the Gorgon said, oh, just one more thing. And he gave them 2 vials of dark liquid. And he said, drink this on your journey home. And some days later, the villagers saw them returning, and they ran up to them with questions. Did you find the Gorgon? How was it? Did you make it over the mountains? And did you find Urchi? And it was as if they had been in a dream. They didn't remember the garden. They didn't remember the fort. They didn't even remember Urchi. It was as if Urchi had never been. Do you see how that was an act of benevolence? The portion that they had been given wiped their memory. It was a reward for passing the second test. And they lived many years. And that year, in the fall, the heavens opened and rain came. It filled the wells and the river roared, and the grasses turned green on the mountains and flowers sprung. And that year, the crop that Karoy had was the most they've ever had in their lives. And Ilushka, she once again became the mother that she had been before, and the house was beautiful once again, and they became a family. What can I tell you? I can tell you that they grew to be old, and they thanked their Lord. They thanked everything, the Lord, for their ability, where they had got to with the children and the village. What more can I tell you? I can tell you that some nights when they couldn't sleep, for they were old now, they would climb out of bed and sit on a stone by the house looking at the stars, feeling the wind from the north come gently touching their faces. And they would hear the birds singing in the night. And sometimes they would hear the tinkling of a bell. They didn't know where this came from. And sometimes it seemed so real that they called out, "Is someone there?" But no one ever answered. It was like the tail end of a dream. And it went, it passed, as all things pass. They lived to be old. They had almost lost the sight of their eyes. And there's nothing much more I can tell you. But you may ask, did a handsome boy on a white horse come riding to the village one day? And did he break bread with the people in the marketplace? And did he drink from the water that was now plentiful? And did he stop to talk to Karo and Ilushka? And he talked to them, spoke with them for seemed such a long time, almost as if he knew them. I don't know. That's just a rumor after all. Thank you.
I've never been a parent, but it sure sounds like a tough job. Thank you, Janos.